I mean, we're still short a quorum, so. Right? Yep. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, we have 5. We have 5. We're good. Forgot to count myself.
Steve, just as an aside, I will not be sending you any more emails today.
Oh, I'm upset. Let me make sure that dismiss. Let me make sure I've got what I need
Steve,
here.
just as an aside, I will not be sending you any more emails today. You recorded it.
Oh, I'm upset. Let me make sure that dismiss. Let me make sure I've got what I need
Steve,
here.
just as an aside, I will not be sending you any more emails today. You recorded it.
Oh, I'm upset.
I think that needs to be used for the city's voicemail.
Everybody is hearing that on a loop, yes?
Just as an aside, I will not be sending you any more emails today.
No?
You recorded it.
Oh, you're
I'm
frozen.
upset.
I think that needs to be used for the city's voicemail.
Everybody is hearing that on a loop,
Just
yes?
as an aside, I will not be sending you any more emails today.
No?
That was weird.
I unleashed a monster. I apologize.
Well, let me, it was on my same laptop versus my other, so it just kept going into a loop. Trying to do the YouTube. Oh, okay, I see what's going on. Oh, okay. Now I see what's going on. So the problem is that I am doing this from home versus at the office because Judy is in Florida and I needed to get home to let Izzy out. When I'm in the office, I can start
I fill every order myself. I add a little thank you note to the customers.
When Sarah Mahalik needs
What
any
is
of her
that?
glass art and jewelry business, she has it delivered free and fast.
Have a video playing in your background, like an ad on
Look
another
with help from
website sheet
Staples.com.
Wow.
page, website page.
This is very weird. Anyway, when you're in the office and you start the recording on YouTube, it flips over to my other screen and then I can start that and close that down so that we don't have the repeating. Since I'm here, I've got my personal laptop here and that, so I don't know. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna continue with this recording and we'll let Travis worry about the YouTube thing and he can upload it or something tomorrow. So I'm just gonna let it go so that we don't get messed up. But Councilmember Ottenberg, I did hear your comment, I think 7 times because it kept repeating itself. And what I said was, I appreciate 10 emails a day as you hit the limit. So that's enough for today. All kidding aside, you can send as many emails to me as you wish.
Thank you.
Doesn't guarantee that I'm going to answer them, but you can send
I
them.
just got a notification that the connection I have is unstable. I'm gonna try to come back in.
You're fine. Your video and your audio is just fine. I'd leave it for now if I were you.
Okay, you guys are all frozen, so
Oh, okay.
yeah, you're the only
You're
rest of you are
frozen now.
sitting for a
No.
painting. Okay, so I may just have to leave the meeting and come back on, but you guys now, if you can you give me a thumbs up? Oh, you're very frozen. Okay. Well, we normally don't have this kind of trouble. It looks like the chat feature is enabled, but if someone could just find a way to get a hold of me and let me know if I that would be great. But if not, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order then. Welcome to the February 22nd meeting of Economic Development. Will you please call the roll, Ms. Patrick?
Sure. Chair Edens,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Here.
Councilmember Galani, Councilmember Flasher, Councilmember Jaxi,
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Here.
and Councilmember McCutcheon. Okay, all members accounted for except for the 3 absent.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead and review the minutes. So I'll entertain a motion for approval. And you're frozen. Oh boy.
I'll make the motion.
Made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by
Councilmember
Councilmember
Dodwell.
Jaxi. Oh, okay, thank you. You might have to shout it out until my internet does a little bit better because I'm not seeing the fingers or the hands like normal. Any adjustments to the minutes?
No, but Lauren, I would suggest you go ahead and back out and
Try to
come
get
back
on.
in.
That's
Okay.
what I just sent her a text and says she should do that.
Yeah,
Because I've been texting her and because the unstable issue is on her end, but I just said maybe she ought to just exit and try coming back in because she can't conduct the meeting that way.
no. Thank you, Steve.
No, not a problem. I'll watch for her and bring her in.
The joys of dealing with technology.
Most times it's all right. So let me promote her. Hopefully this will be better for her. All right, she should be here.
Okay. Oh my goodness, this already looks better.
Mhm.
So fingers crossed, and we do apologize, Ms. Fonzie. It's not normally this much of a cat herding experience, and I don't normally have internet trouble, but I suppose Wildwood finally caught up with me on that one a little bit. So thank you for your patience. So we had a motion on the floor to approve the minutes, and I had asked if there was any adjustments to the minutes, and I heard no comments, but I just want to make sure that's correct. Okay, then, seeing all those in favor of approving the minutes as is, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Chair, did you get your second to the motion to approve the minutes?
I did, yes.
Okay, all right, sorry.
I think it was Councilmember Jaxi. I
Perfect.
saw him or heard him before Councilmember Dodwell. Okay, all right, moving on to public comments before we go to our first for action item. And I'm not sure, let me check and see if the attendees changed. No, we've still got Mr. Hugh Scher and Ms. Jean Ponzi, who we will move over shortly. Hugh, would you like to comment tonight?
I'm sorry.
I was just asking Hugh if he would like to comment, to please.
Oh,
his raise
no,
hand.
I don't have any comments. Who's doing the Green Business Challenge, the first for action? Is that Jean?
Yes, that is Jean.
Would you like me to promote her then?
Yes, please.
Okay, she should be joining us. There she is.
Okay, and she will need to share her screen as well.
Hi there.
Hi.
So promoted, does that mean I get a job in Wildwood?
You know, you might not want one, but yes, yes, it does.
It'd be a long commute. I live in the city. Yes, if you could make me a co-host, I could share my screen. Or maybe I can do that already. I can do that already. So thank you very much for inviting me tonight. I have a short PowerPoint I want to show you about the Green Cities Challenge. And then I'm very happy to talk with you about whatever additionally you would know about the challenge. And I want to say that it's been a great pleasure to work with Wildwood. I'm pretty sure this is Wildwood's 5th year in the challenge. So the Green Business Challenge is a program of the Missouri Botanical Garden. It was launched in 2010 by the St. Louis Regional Chamber, our Meta Chamber of Commerce. I have worked with the program since it was launched. We took over sole management of the challenge in 2017. And the purpose of it is to ground green as a value, as a business practice, as a way of incorporating sustainable thinking and practice, sustainable thinking and strategy into policy as well as practice. So it's been doing a really great job. This is the 13th year of the program, which means I am overseeing a teenager. Why have a program like this from a botanical garden? Well, we have a sustainability division, the Earthway Center, which I am a member of the team of. And we have a depth and a breadth of sustainability knowledge. We work with a lot of this across our team. We work with similar subject matter, but different audiences. So my audience is businesses and adult audiences. And from the garden, the mission of the garden to discover and share knowledge about plants and their environment in order to preserve and enrich life. We're focusing on the environment part, that the human impacts on plants and our ecosystems, and working to educate and motivate sustainability in those interactions. We have several different levels of participation in the challenge. What we originally had as the bread and butter of the challenge, we now call our leader level. Companies can come in at kind of a toe in the water, what we call our apprentice level. Once a company has been in the program for a while and has done a lot of the basics, they can go on to our champion level. We implemented an element of the program specifically for municipalities in 2016, the Green Cities Challenge, which is really geared to be able to coach and support greening for the unique needs and the specific leadership populations that cities have: city staffs, elected officials, and engaged groups of citizens. We've had over 250 companies in the challenge since we launched, and we have a very high retention rate. More than 60% have been in the program for 3 or more years. You put all the green you should on a scorecard or on a list, and that allows participants to strategically identify things we're already doing, things we would like, things we intend to do, things we want to do but might be a little bit of a stretch, or things that are just not in the on the agenda, in the ballpark for us. Regarding engagement in the case of communities, for your residents, that are your constituents, regarding purchasing and greening of supply chains, building energy efficiency, recycling and waste minimization, green transportation, water conservation, and that can be in buildings and also in landscaping. And then we also have a special focus in our program on biodiversity, on advancing understanding and protection of biodiversity. And we're always open to rewarding and recognizing and promoting innovations of all kinds. So for example, in Wildwood, your community garden that were originally in the city center, and then as development proceeded and economic benefits were mandated different kinds of usage for the acreage that were those community gardens, moving those to City Hall. In 2022, we are launching use of an online tracking and reporting tool, Green Biz Tracker. We have done tracking and reporting in the past using Excel scorecards, which is what you see here. Green Biz Tracker is a major jump up for us. It allows each participant to very efficiently log online the things you are doing, and Tracker will give you metrics and data back about your performance and the impacts of your work. And it also will give us metrics and data back about the impacts of the program as a whole. This is a big deal. We're getting use of Green Biz Tracker at no charge for 2 years through a major grant from US EPA. Missouri and New York this year joined 8 other states across the country in using Green Biz Tracker. It originated in California, and the California Green Business Network, which originated this online tool, has somewhere between 40 and 60 programs working with businesses all up and down the state of California. So this is an exciting update for us. We're offering use of Tracker to the green cities, and I'm hoping that Wildwood staff and leadership there will have the capacity to enter data about what you're doing into Green Biz Tracker. It's an option for the cities. We offer a lot of peer-to-peer learning opportunities, and this is especially salient when it comes to the municipalities. Here you see examples of tours that we've had and special programs that we've had. We used to have monthly seminars, in-person seminars. In April 2020, when COVID shut everything down, we pivoted to good old Zoom. And just last week, we had number 79 in a series of weekly half-hour virtual brown bag seminars that are open to anyone in the challenge. We record them and we archive them for on-demand viewing on YouTube. We have the capacity to really support business development for businesses that are doing business in the green space. It might have to do with office supplies or electronics recycling or ecological landscaping or cleaning services, solar installations. There are a wide variety of ecological business lines that companies in the challenge have. And when that's the case, your company becomes a part of a network with green thinking leaders and decision makers in many other companies, but it is not a selling situation. We also make recognition. We publish an accomplishments book every year that has a page in it for every company and every city and every nonprofit in the challenge. We make awards. We have had in-person award events every year until 2019, and then we had 2 years of virtual award events on Zoom. I am very hopeful and certainly would really like to return to an in-person awards event in December 2022. And then we present awards to every participant. You can see an example of our 2021 award there, the one that was presented to our presenting sponsor, Gray Bar. In 2020 and 21, we had to mail these things, so they were designed for easy mailing. We are cultivating sustainability literacy. What does that mean? Collaboration does it call for? What kind of changes in decision-making and evaluating and budgeting does sustainability prompt compared to a more linear, a more sort of profit and loss, you win, we lose kind of ethos for doing business? Sustainability draws its practices and its values, frankly, in a lot of ways from how nature does things, where you have competition and you have collaboration. And when entities work together with an understanding of whole systems, as opposed to just little niches and tiny points, all boats can rise. We also promote an ethic of service, especially environmental service, service to food banks, honeysuckle hacks, participation in community gardens, stream cleanups. In 2020, Gray Bar, which is in the electrical equipment business, rallied all of their suppliers nationwide to identify and aggregate the kinds of PPE that were typically used in electrical construction and electrical contracting, gathered those and made those available to healthcare professionals when early in the pandemic we had great shortages of PPE. It's a lot of fun. It generates camaraderie. It's an option, and we can help any company or any entity connect with a service option in an efficient way. Sustainability reporting is also increasingly a big thing. It is a 21st century imperative in the global marketplace. For municipalities, not so much, but we have had several municipalities develop sustainability plans and in fact adapt from one another. Granite City was the first municipality in our area to formalize a sustainability plan. It was distinct from their comprehensive plan, but they were looking for ways in which the two plans could interact with each other. Collinsville adapted that plan. Actually, they turned it into an infographic. And this year, the city of Webster Groves is looking at adapting that plan. We have less of a track record in the municipal sector of sustainability integrated into comprehensive plans. I know that Creve Coeur has done some work along those lines. There is also, we also like to recognize where sustainability is inherent in planning. For example, Wildwood is the queen of ecologically minded planning and zoning and land use management. And I have had many, many occasions to sing the praises of the way in which you manage your land and your planning and zoning. We're working on making green visible and bringing it into the popular culture. I've been working in the green space for over 30 years, back when it was hippy dippy, left wing, hard to find, always more expensive. And today we have Ameren, our electrical utility, making grants to support installation of electric vehicle charging stations. You have a fabulous network of trails and greenways in Wildwood that connects to our larger regional Great Rivers Greenway network that connects to the Metro East greenways. We have recycling practices in public places. We have a big uptick in renewable energy installations. We have a lot of things like ecological landscaping and green roofs. And part of what the challenge seeks to do is to tell that story and help get the word out there that these things are functional, they're affordable, they're beneficial, and they're happening here. And then we really, this is an era, in my humble opinion, as a longtime ecological advocate and community leader, collaboration is essential. Individual efforts, yes, are very important, but we're past the point where you can pick up a book called 50 Things You Can Do to Save the Earth and have that really have an impact. Collaborative impacts are very, very important. So for example, the city of St. Louis has a building energy performance standard. We were the first city in the Midwest to pass a building energy performance standard. LA, Washington, DC, and New York also have them. That came in no small part out of the US Green Building Council, Gateway Regional Chapter. I was just in a meeting this afternoon where USGBC's officials have made a connection to a new sustainability officer just hired in St. Louis County, came to St. Louis County from Chicago, and they are looking at ways to migrate building energy performance standards into codes, into inspections, and into planning for buildings in St. Louis County. It's a big change in how we look at our building stock and how we value energy efficiency. And it frankly is an almost immediate win-win because energy efficiency always saves you money. The 5 institutions in our Zoo Museum District, the Art Museum, the St. Louis Zoo, the Science Center, the Missouri Botanical Garden, and the Missouri Historical Society, we have a group green team. We are working on doing things together that can achieve more than the sum of their parts. And there you see a screenshot of Collinsville, Illinois' sustainability plan. As I said, adapted almost wholesale from work that was done in Granite City. Here are a couple of shots of the Communities in Green Cities Challenge last year in Illinois and Missouri. They're in alphabetical order by city name. So you can see as you're looking at this, there's stuff having to do with green streets, complete streets, with creating recreational opportunities that in no small part can link people to the health benefits of nature. And in the case of Alton, link the population to the Mississippi River that flows right across their doorstep. Here we see Brentwood installation of electric vehicle charging stations. Brentwood also has completely eliminated mosquito fogging, which St. Louis County Vector Control will be the first to tell you is one of the least effective ways of controlling mosquito populations, even though people tend to think that that kind of chemical magic is what they want. City of Clayton has been doing green work for a long time. They had some of the first LEED certified buildings, public buildings in our area. They've been doing a lot of work retrofitting lights in their parks. Clayton, I was very pleased when Clayton joined the challenge. They brought in a wealth of green experience and green commitment. One of the things that Collinsville did last year was they created a green recognition program for businesses in their community. And this is something that Wildwood Economic Development Council might be interested in doing, not trying to get businesses in their community in the challenge. It's a fee-based program. It's a program that probably will take more time than a small business with an owner who works there and a small number of employees could deal with. But within your own community, if you have a green business recognition program, that is a way to spread the love and the values and the knowledge and the acclaim for engaging in sustainability. Lots of work in Edwardsville. One of the big things that Edwardsville did in partnership with Glen Carbon, their neighboring village, was to implement a 10-cent single-use fee for single-use, a 10-cent fee for single-use bags for stores all over the city of Edwardsville. That had to go on hiatus in 2020 when COVID shut down our ability to use reusable bags for a while, but it's back in action. And you can see again, there's ecological mosquito management versus more conventional chemical fogging. A lot of stuff having to do with cycling, active living, greening of transportation. Let's see. We also have had a lot of work happening in the green cities where a community will host an electronics recycling drive. Increasingly, those services are available with document destruction, free shredding up to a certain number of boxes. Very convenient, excellent service. And we have terrific service providers that are challenge participants, frankly. MRC Recycling is one of them. There also has been a lot of work done on inventorying trees. I know that Wildwood has done a lot of work there to take down ash trees infested with emerald ash borer and reforest your community tree cover with a variety of native species. Let's see, a lot of work in Highland, Illinois, maintaining Silver Lake, which is their reservoir, major source of water for the entire Highland community. Webster Groves got back in the challenge last year after a couple of years out. They have a very dynamic sustainability commission. They are in the process of getting a draft sustainability plan approved by their city council. And that is a big deal. Again, it makes green visible, it makes it real, it helps it function in the day-to-day operations of a municipality to benefit residents, benefit businesses, and to be a part of 21st century green business culture. And then Wentzville, your neighbor, has been doing a lot of work with stormwater management and with engaging residents to protect water quality, to protect the parks, and they too formed a green, they call it the Wentzville Green Ambassadors. It is a program to recognize businesses in their community that are engaging to various degrees with sustainability. So I think that was the last in my slides. I am at the Missouri Botanical Garden, J Ponzi, like the famous scheme, J Ponzi at mobot, mobot.org. And our website is stlouisgreenchallenge.com. Michelle Scherer has been a terrific ambassador for Wentzville for the Green Cities Challenge. I also have worked with Robin, and forgive me for my middle-aged brain not remembering her last name, relatively new planner on your team. I haven't had the opportunity to engage with economic development interests yet in Wildwood, but I really, really am happy to have this opportunity to talk with you, show you a little bit about the challenge, and see what your interests might be going forward. So.
Well, thank you. I will
Welcome.
start us off with some questions, and I will say, forgive me if somehow my questions are repetitive. I really
Okay.
struggled with internet connection, so at times you were speaking like a normal human, and other times you were in a very comical slow motion. So what I did glean is that it may be difficult for some of our smaller businesses to participate in the Green Business Challenge, but that we could somehow mirror the program with our own version of a Green Business Recognition Program and or award type structure. And I'm wondering if we went about doing that. Are you aware of other cities that are our size? Is there a template that we would use? Could we and the Green Business Tracker section I was extremely interested in, and that cut out significantly for me. So what I got is that we could enter data into it, and that's all I heard. But is that a tool we can use as well?
I'll answer the tracker part first, Lauren.
Okay.
At this time, as we are just launching use of Green Biz Tracker for the challenge, it's not a tool that I can offer to a municipality that you could then extend use of to your constituents, because it would have to be configured a little bit differently. That is definitely possible. It's possible as soon as next year. The Illinois Green Business Program, which is our sister program, it's based out of Champaign, is a certification program. The challenge is not. The challenge is voluntary reporting, and it's a recognition program. But IGBP is looking at the possibility of working with some businesses on a pilot basis in Collinsville and Granite City. We're proposing it to those two communities in the Green Cities Challenge to have a smaller version of a green business program for those communities. Again, it's a question of configuring Tracker, and we just did a big configuration of it for the challenge to use it in general. And later this spring, we're going to be adding the biodiversity component that our Green Business Challenge developed in 2012 to Green Biz Tracker, so that programs can use it nationally, which I'm very, very proud of. But that's another hunk of work. So that's probably going to be as many hunks of work as we can get the Tracker team to do for us this year. That being said, Creve Coeur has a green business program. It has focused primarily on recycling, and the staff person for that, who is on the board of St. Louis Audubon, her position and that program is funded by a grant from St. Louis County Department of Public Health. That is something that you could look at replicating. It's something that you could look at finding funding to support, particularly if the first focus of it was on recycling, because it's the county waste management branch recycling program. Work with them very closely, great partners. The program that I mentioned in Collinsville, the Green Business Recognition Program, is just that. Last year, Collinsville recognized 3 businesses, a brewery, maybe it's 2 businesses, a brewery and a enterprise that takes donations of children's clothing and school supplies and toys and makes those available on a resale basis. So that's another kind of a program that you could potentially look at replicating. I don't know all the details of Wentzville's program, but there again is another example. So Creve Coeur, Collinsville, and Wentzville, yes, opportunities to look at replicating. And I would be very happy to network anyone on your council that would be interested in doing that with the folks who are doing similar work in their own communities.
Yeah, I'm interested in the particularly the voluntary, reporting aspect, especially as we are spread pretty thin on staff time. That might be easier for us to tackle in terms of a recognition program rather than a program where we're actually seeking grant money and administering it to provide services.
Sure.
So my other thing I wanted to touch base a little bit more about, and I'll open it up for questions, was when I had talked with Michelle and corresponded with you on email, one of the things Michelle said to me was that oftentimes, there are corporations or cities that are not aware of things that they're doing that already would qualify for this program, or a lot of times it's very small and incremental changes that they can make that are budgetary, friendly to their budget, that they can make as well, that would allow them to qualify for that program. So, I mean, I know it's still geared towards some bigger companies. I'm just wondering, with that mindset in mind, do we have any medium-sized companies here in Wildwood that could still take advantage of the program?
If you did, our apprentice level would be what I would suggest. As the phrase I like to use is a toe in the water. The apprentice participants use a menu. It's basically 2 sides of 1-page menu of basic sustainability policies and practices to guide initial engagement with sustainability. The fee for that is $250. We structure our apprentice program with a training workshop, and then over 4 to 6 months worth of work, depending on when the company gets into the program, We provide on-demand, online and telephone coaching for the apprentices. And then we have a report out workshop towards the end of our program year where the apprentice companies can hear from and learn from one another. And that's one of the best things I think the challenge does, is it puts businesses and municipalities and nonprofits together with one another to learn about not only what are you doing, but what's your process? What were the issues? What were the obstacles? You know, it's been a very, very good peer-to-peer learning program. So if there were some businesses in Wildwood that you think would be likely candidates, you know, it could be one or two. I would love to have some Wildwood enterprises in the program at our apprentice level. And companies can join at the apprentice level as late as mid-June and still have enough time in the calendar year cycle of a Green Business Challenge program year to do the work.
I will say what I chuckled to myself a little bit because one of your city pictures, I can't remember if it was Webster Groves, had a picture of goats kind of
Yes.
mowing invasive species, and I was wondering if it was the logo was Goats on the Go. So I think there's only one location in the area, and that is actually a Wildwood-based company. So
No kidding.
yes, and they were just at our Lawn and
Whoa.
Garden Summit. So I think we might have one business that,
Wow.
among
Wow.
others, that would qualify right away because it looks like they helped a city qualify. So does anybody else have any questions? If not, I'll keep talking. But Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I just had one question. If a company does choose to get involved and they have many other suppliers themselves that do not want to be involved, how does that work? Does that disqualify them?
Say a little bit about what kind of company that is.
Well, say that you have the grocery store.
Okay.
And they are getting food products from places that are not using good environmental practices. But they can't control that.
Right. Well, supply chain changes is one of the number of options of topical areas, sustainability focuses that a challenge participant can interact with. And if that's out of control, or if that's more than a company would want to do, every challenge participant selects what they want to work on in any given program year. And my job and my goal as the coach of the companies is to guide those choices so that you will have the best success in your effort. There are certain things that I know that are like, people think they want to do them and they are just so darn hard. They're not what you want to start with. And if, for example, a retail business that has various outlets and that has various suppliers wanted to be in the challenge, you know, Schnucks Markets is a good example. Not Shop and Save. Was it Shop and Save? There was another store chain. Their headquarters was out in Earth City by the former Rams training. Save-A-Lot Foods have been in the challenge. Now, those were their corporate offices. Those were the businesses. They were not dealing with day-to-day operations in stores. But one of the things, for example, that they dealt with was right about that time implementing plastic bag collection as an amenity for customers and as a participation with other retail chains. But no, you choose, every company chooses what you want to work on. And as I said, my goal is to help guide those choices so that sustainability grows deep roots and is not a flash in the pan.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Well, I'm thinking about how to communicate this to our Wildwood businesses, especially because the WBA, it looks like, Wildwood Business Association was not able to make it tonight. And so if I had to boil this down for someone that says, you know, what's in it for me, or what's the benefit other than the altruistic, you're doing the right thing and you're really helping the environment. So what I've kind of gleaned is, you know, you've got networking that's peer-to-peer to help you overcome challenges, supplier suggestions, guidance and mentorship, and participant recognition. Is there anything else that I'm really missing that's an important cell?
Yeah, the tools, the list, when we were using Excel scorecards, we called them scorecards. Green Biz Tracker uses the term checklists. So we're changing that verbiage and having the green, you could, you should, on a list in categories. Very, very helpful to be able to identify things that you're already doing and to be able to strategize things that you want to take on. And for participation at our apprentice level, where, as I said, we use a menu of basic sustainability policies and practices. Again, those things are kind of, they're sort of categorized. So you don't have to be thinking through all the sustainable possibilities. They're good, strong suggestions. And then we will work with any participant to help implement other measures that are things that you are interested in doing. Customized service to every participant in that bigger picture, under that bigger umbrella of business greening. That is what the challenge offers. And we have a brochure, Lauren, that I can email to you that summarizes enough of what I said tonight to be able to share with your WBA.
That would be excellent. Councilmember Dodwell?
I was just going to ask the question, if someone reaches out to your group, what's the first thing that you ask of them?
Well, I might ask, what does your business do? Are you engaged with sustainability to any degree? Do you have a green team, or do you have an organizing unit already for green leadership? Green team is the term that we use pretty typically for businesses, and that could be 3 people, it could be 27 people. We have a green team at the Missouri Botanical Garden that represents all of our buildings and all of our operating divisions. So those are kind of the really starting measures. And what are you interested in working on? Where do you feel you want to engage? You know, at what point in this journey do you want to take your steps, and what have you got going on already? It's kind of like a dating interview, really.
Well, that's part of the reason I asked, was to better understand if we make those connections, what would that interview process be like? We have a lot of businesses that are, as Lauren has said, small business oriented. And so they don't have a lot of time to sit down and discuss in depth the philosophical benefits of being ecologically sound and blah, 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 blah. They want to be able to get to the root of here, what types of things should we be doing, could we be doing, and then some guidance to help point them to those things that will be, as you said earlier, easy to do and not so overbearing that they just give up and say, not in my lifetime, kind of thing.
Right.
So,
Now, when, in the case of Wildwood, because you have the really wonderful, commendable density that you have in your city center, you have that walkable city center, and then the beauty, the natural beauty of Wildwood. And when one drives over the boundary of Wildwood into the next community, one of the first things you see is a typical strip mall. It's so striking. Kudos to Wildwood. So, for example, in one of the things that we've tried in the challenge for smaller businesses, in places like the U City Loop or the Manchester Business District in Maplewood, an idea was to recruit businesses and have a group green team where there was one person from every business in the neighborhood Green Business Challenge, and that group would address measures that could potentially benefit all of them. For example, somebody might do some research on energy efficiency incentives available from Ameren. Somebody
Mhm.
else might do research on being able to transform or upgrade waste minimization services so everybody could have recycling, or so that recycling took up less parking spaces or something like that.
Mhm.
That was not an idea that ever really, for various reasons, that took off. It's not impossible that we could look at doing that again. And if
Mhm.
there was interest in having a green business district in Wildwood City Center, there are models for that. St. Louis Earth Day has a program called the Green Dining Alliance that you've probably heard of.
Mhm.
That is a certification program for restaurants. And so we don't work directly with restaurants. We'll refer them to the Green Dining Alliance because that's their specialty, is the food service sector. 25% of the restaurants in a business district, Maplewood, U-City Loop, again, examples, get GDA certification, and then you have a green dining district. So it might be, we could set a parameter if Wildwood wanted to be a model for this, of
Mhm.
how many businesses, what percentage of businesses in your city center would join the challenge, and we can hybridize our services to meet
Mhm.
those needs. But
Okay.
I would start with our apprentice level program, and
Mhm.
then perhaps have a group training for businesses in Wildwood so that they could talk to each other and work with each other right out of the gate.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, Chair. There's so many thoughts going through my head on these programs, but I guess my bottom line would be what would this add to meeting our goals to become the city that we plan to be in 5, 10, 15 years from now? So how is that going? And that's just a rhetorical.
Mhm.
And so there's many questions about the details of time and money it will take, and how much we need to change to get to the point. But I just wanted to mention that there were 3 things that you talked about that really struck me as important. One was that Green Biz Tracker,
Mhm.
and being able to track your progress and track the progress of the program.
Mhm.
The accomplishments and innovation book that shows the where progress is being made,
Mhm.
and so that you don't go back and make a mistake again, or go in the wrong direction.
Mhm.
You can see where the directions go, and the where you get the most progress, as well as the sustainability reporting.
Mhm.
So all of those things, the reporting and keeping records and showing where the progress was a positive in my eye.
Okay, great. I just, again, today exchanged emails with my colleagues in the Illinois Green Business Program. They are piloting a, what do I want to say, kind of a condensed sort of fast track to certification version of use of Green Biz Tracker in a couple of communities in Illinois. Again, this would be something that I would not look to launch with Missouri participants in 2022 because of what we're already doing, but we could look toward this in 2023, particularly if there were a couple of businesses in Wildwood that wanted to engage with the challenge and engage with sustainability at our apprentice level. And of course, you already have, your city is a part of it. You're already in that network. There are some excellent reporting and tracking tools that are really user-friendly. One of the best ones is Energy Star Portfolio Manager. It comes from the US EPA. It uses the EPA's Energy Star standards for energy efficiency as the guideline. And Portfolio Manager is an online tool for any building. You can enter a year's worth of utility data, and that gives you a baseline or a benchmark of energy usage. And then you establish a practice of continuing to enter that data, like when you pay your bills. And that will allow you to track and generate reports, if you want to, of progress over time. Portfolio Manager in addition to tracking energy, it can also be configured to track water use and waste outputs. Waste is a little bit harder to track in our area because most waste haulers don't have trucks that are equipped with scales where they could give you a report of what they collected from any particular pickup point. But you're paying for water in St. Louis County. I'm assuming that you are Missouri American Water customers there in Wildwood, and everybody uses energy and those costs will continue to go up. So that is one tool that is nationally used, very, very user-friendly. It allows you to calculate a greenhouse gas inventory if you want to. Now, so what I would ask you back relative to Wildwood's goals, and this back to you is a rhetorical question too, because of the limits of time tonight. What are goals and aspirations within the city of Wildwood, and particularly relative to economic development in Wildwood, that connect to the processes and the services that sustainability offers? So that is a question for, discussion potentially at another time. Communities that have a sustainability plan or that have a sustainability component of their comprehensive plan would be establishing those kinds of guidelines. To the best of my knowledge, Wildwood has not done that kind of planning yet. And I'm very, very aware of the limits of your city staff and the fact that Wildwood outsources some services that other cities might have staff to perform, just given the lean nature of who you are there. So, capacity is an issue. Or a guiding would be a guiding guidepost in thinking and discussing.
I think that was well put, Jean. As a city, we have lofty ideals that we've really tried to live up to, that we've stated, particularly that you would hear more often in our parks and recreation meetings, about sustainable buildings, planning for a healthy populace. And we really haven't had that discussion at that has extended to the business community in any fashion, right? So we're making small changes as a city. We're trying, everything from impermeable pavement to we're talking about electric vehicle charging, right? As a city, we recognize that as a city, we want to be a part of this program, and we are a part of this program. But again, we've never extended that discussion really to our business community as it goes beyond any sort of physical building requirement that I know of, or at least since I've been on council. Councilmember Dodwell has been on council longer than I, so maybe she has a different memory of the last few years, but I don't think we've had this discussion before specifically for businesses.
No, not towards businesses at all. Not at all.
I mean,
and how they can use what they do to promote their business as well. I think that's something that a lot of businesses are missing out on is you've got a younger generation than I'm in, obviously, that is even more concerned than I was back in the 70s, 80s, when that was just becoming a goal that the United States even had, was to stop polluting as much as we had been. But I think the ability to reduce that pollution has a direct correlation to how successful the community is in general. If you look at the United States compared to what's going on in China, as far as just throwing pollutants out there, we're, I think, a more advanced country in the way that we do some of our manufacturing, the way that we do our waste management, et cetera, has come a long, long way in the past 40 years. It still has a way to go, definitely. But I think if we could somehow engage with our businesses to better understand steps that they could take to help publicize what they're doing, then that helps. We might be very surprised that many of the businesses are already following a lot of the practices that you would generally apply to
And
energy savings, et cetera.
Can I ask
Carrie
a
wants
couple
to-
questions back to you? Um, what would you say, how would you characterize the makeup of the business sector of Wildwood? Like, is it primarily retail or office or service, or, you know, what would be your like top 5 characterizations of businesses based there?
Retail, office, and service. We have probably less on average in some of the service hospitality industry that you would see in other cities.
Mhm.
So we do have some hospitality, and we have a, let's say, moderate portion of what we qualify under healthcare related, but certainly not like a hospital or even an urgent care, really just office type outpatient.
Do you have any businesses that are, what would I call them, like machine shop oriented, or, you know,
Mm-mm.
car repair, or that sort of light industrial functionality?
There is technically one car repair right
Okay.
on Old Manchester, but
Old Manchester, yeah. Mhm.
And do you have a sense of the proportion of businesses in Wildwood that own their own buildings versus our tenants?
we did have that number. Steve, do you have an update on that number?
Even just like a rough percentage.
So Gene, you were asking what, say that again, please?
What proportion of businesses in Wildwood are building owners versus building tenants approximately?
Well, in town center, the building owners are out of town entities for the most part. So all the buildings, for the most part in town center, have tenants and the owner, and then they own the buildings. If you get outside of town center, the few businesses that we have, those are primarily owners or owner operators of a restaurant or a car repair or a used car, or a restaurant. So it kind of varies of where you are in Wildwood, quite honestly, because the businesses are centered around town center, and most of those are owned by folks
Mhm.
outside.
So one of the big challenges for tenants, and we've had approximately 60% tenants, 40% owners every year across the life of the challenge. Tenants often don't pay their own utility bills. Sometimes they do. You know, if you're a tenant in an office building, it's likely that your utility costs are going to be part of your lease. If you're a tenant in a retail space and your space is separately metered, then your investment or your negotiation with your landlord to invest in energy efficiency improvements can really pay back for you. It may be a situation that, especially in your town center, the kind of ownership that you have may be a situation where the economic council would want to talk to those building owners and see if you could get even a couple of them to go in for investing in building energy improvements, if there were not those kinds of things taking place already, and advise them of incentives that are available from Ameren and that are available from Spire, or incentives that might be available to implement solar power or some kind of thing like that. That's a kind of thing that, if the Economic Council of the City of Wildwood wanted to focus on for Challenge 2022 on behalf of Wildwood, we could serve as a coach for you to do that on behalf of the city, because you are a city entity. The other thing that I'm thinking is, you know, you had last year, you had your bicycle benefits program that was so nicely connected to people being out and using your trails. And gosh, I just can't say enough how much I admire the use of natural resources and the promotion of access to the out of doors that is part of life in Wildwood. So that might be something that you could look to implement, you know, more times a year. Or the state of Missouri would not allow for the kind of bag fee that the state of Illinois communities were able to pass. However, you could engage some businesses, particularly your retail businesses, in some kind of a program that might give a 10-cent discount when a person brought their own bag, or that might, otherwise incentivize use of reusable bags without that having be prompted by an official, dictum. It could be voluntary participation, and I would imagine that a thing like that would attract some participants right away and potentially grow. And it's helpful to hear about your interest in tracking and reporting for smaller businesses in a community. It's an exciting thing to hear your interest in potentially doing this, but again, we'd be looking forward to and planning for something in 2023 rather than being able to offer a tracking mechanism, the kind that we're talking about here, to Wildwood businesses this year.
Okay. I'm sorry if I was interrupting anybody. You all were again freezing on my screen, so it would look like you were done, and then you weren't, and so I do apologize, but I appreciated Councilmember Dodwell's comments and Ms. Ponzi's comments as well. You had briefly mentioned the Green Dining Alliance challenge, and it occurs to me that there's some models of this, not 5 minutes from my house, but in the Ellisville Baldwin area. And so the Wolf Cafe, for example, I mean, they clearly have written, I think that they compost, up to 80% of their food waste, and they have biodegradable utensils and biodegradable to-go containers as well. So it makes it easier if we would approach our own businesses about making small changes to say that there is another business in our community region, perhaps, that has found a way to do this, maybe to the more extreme side, and is still profitable doing so. And I think that's tremendously helpful. If there are examples that you have of that we could use as talking points, I think that would be really great if you'd send them our way.
I'm glad you mentioned the Wolf. I thought that was in Wildwood, but I wasn't absolutely sure. I'm pretty sure they're a 5-star certified restaurant in the Green Dining Hall. They're not? Well, close. They've been in it for a long time. They're one of the longest participating restaurants.
No, I was saying not in Wildwood. But
in Wildwood. Okay. Well, they're nearby. They're in the area.
No, they're not yet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. If a restaurant is locally owned, that's your best bet for getting Green Dining Alliance certification. And they have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star certification program that is weighted so that a burger joint could get certified in the same way that a vegan restaurant could get certified. It's a really, really wonderful program. The fees are based on the number of FTE employees in the restaurant. It's an annual recertification visit. And as I said, it's a sister program to the challenge that specifically has expertise working with restaurants and catering and food service businesses. So we cross-promote each other. And I know that there are restaurants that have GDA certification that have documented the business benefits of that, but I can't give you specific examples of those. I can tell you that the Green Dining Alliance does a bang-up job of promoting their certified restaurants. They do a fabulous job on social media and some public media outlets like Feast and Sauce magazines. You've been very generous with your time, and I don't want to, I know you have other items on your agenda.
We're going to have to go ahead and move on, but I think what would be appropriate tonight, and I can bring this back on the next agenda as well. When are committee reassignments done? Mid-April. So would I have one more meeting before we're right in transition where we don't know if we're going to be on the same committee, but there there would still be a draft agenda before somebody would be elected again. So I think it would be appropriate to go ahead and have a motion to bring this back. And also, if anybody would be supportive, which I would greatly appreciate, we could go ahead and work on an outreach to businesses. And so that would be what promotion of the Green Business Challenge would look like for us. So that could be through our newsletter. We do have some emails of local businesses. And that could include, advertising on social media or something like that. So that's something that we could go ahead and begin working on. Could also do some outreach to the West St. Louis Chamber of Commerce as well. I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, and I will follow up here with a copy of our brochure, and I will send
Okay.
that to you, Lauren. And I'll also send you links to a couple of the programs that I mentioned, the Creve Coeur Green Business District, which has, that staff person has gone into individual offices in office buildings and office parks. Again, that's very specifically focused on recycling because of the funding source. But once the Creve Coeur Green Business Program person is in there, then she can talk about other stuff like energy efficiency and what the landscaping is like outside the building and things like that. And if there is a link to it, I'll also send you a link to Collinsville's Green Business Recognition Program. Does Wildwood have where are you in your city's comprehensive planning process?
We just updated it.
Okay.
We just updated it.
Okay.
Our
Do
5-year
you-
strategic plan.
Okay, 5-year strategic plan. Is
But
that posted on your city website?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if there are sustainability elements in that plan?
Not like, no, but it's flexible, and maybe we can have a council level discussion about adding them.
Okay, okay.
Well, I think, Lauren, that you've got the ability to, based on some of the goals that we had set, include sustainability as part of the work process in meeting some of those goals, so that, if we're going to invest in something, then let's figure out how we invest effectively in both reducing waste and providing services to people.
And we did use the in discussions on economic development in our economic development guide, which is in the process of being updated when we hopefully get a new staff member. We've used the word sustainable economic development. I think now this is a more literal interpretation of that. So
Yeah.
perhaps we've already said it, just we're stating it in a totally different way with different
Yeah.
implications. So would anyone like to make a motion? Made by Councilmember Dodwell, seconded. Oh, go. Please state the motion. Was it what I suggested before, or something different?
I would like for us to also include in the motion getting in an information summary from Steve Cross or one of his staff members about what sustainability or recycling processes, et cetera, are occurring in City Hall as well. I think we need to document that if we're going to go out and talk to other groups about doing that. And I'm not saying, well, we take it out to the trash can and we put it in the recycle bin, but just, a general description of this is how we're saving the city funds or saving the environment that we all live in, et cetera. These are some steps that we've taken. I know Steve has done this with how we do our recycling in town with our vendors and our trash pickup, et cetera. So I think those are all key parts to what Wildwood itself is doing.
You probably already have in Michelle
that's
Scherer's
what's-
records a pretty good list of green measures that have been implemented in City Hall. In the
Mhm.
first year that Wildwood was in the challenge, You did things like took bottled water out of meetings and you started having reusable pitchers, and you had recycling implemented in your meeting rooms.
Mhm.
You were dealing with stormwater management. Wildwood had for a while, I'm sorry to say, about the worst recycling contractor in the region. And you don't have them anymore, which is really a good thing. That would have been for residents, not for commercial customers, because
Mhm.
typically there are two different kinds of things. And I'm looking at your new plan, at the list of stuff in your new plan. One of the things that I noticed right away is in your administrative section, develop a dashboard scorecard reporting tool. Energy Star Portfolio Manager would be really, really good for that, would be a really good start. And also potentially Green Biz Tracker through the challenge.
Mhm.
And
Okay, real,
yeah, go ahead.
oh, we're frozen again. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
So,
Can you hear me?
Michelle,
Yes, I can hear you, Lauren.
Okay, I just flashed across my screen, internet connection was unstable, so if I interrupted you again, I apologize. But I do need a second on the motion before we have any more discussion. Seconded by Councilmember Clark. Okay, so that includes Councilmember Dodwell's additions of an info and summary. Ms. Ponzi suggested including our Green Info Challenge application and update on status, dashboard, and Green Biz consideration. They'll be back on the agenda. We'll start some work on emails to businesses and what advertising and promotion planning would look like. Does that restate the motion on the floor pretty well?
Mhm.
Okay. Now, did I cut anybody off when my screen froze?
Mhm.
No? Okay. Again, thank you with your patience. I'm not sure what's going on. I don't normally have trouble like this, so. Okay, see, do we have any further discussion on the motion on the floor? If not, we'll go straight to a vote. Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Ponzi, for presenting. And we'll be in touch on email with the additional resources you offered to send me. I will forward them to the rest of the committee.
Great.
Hopefully after another meeting and some of the initial work on approaching businesses, letting them know about the program, recruiting them, we'll be able to have a distinguished track record as a city, contribute to the program, and look at adding sustainability goals to our city in a different way than before. So thank you for joining us.
I will close by saying that you already do have that distinguished track record. I appreciate that. I admire that. I get to work with a lot of entities around St. Louis, and there are some things that are happening in Wildwood that are head and shoulders above other communities. So thank you for bringing this discussion into your economic development sector too.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. All right, we're gonna move on and being mindful of the time. That was our only ready for action. So you'll see that the Wildwood Business Association, I have asked them to provide an update. They looks like they didn't attend tonight, so we can skip that one. Summary of the Lawn and Garden Summit. Do you want to start first, Steve, or do you want me to take it away?
No, Chair, you pulled that all together, so I think it's appropriate for you to go ahead and give your summary. Thank you.
Well, it went off without rain and with very cold, windy weather in the morning, but a nice sunny but windy afternoon. There were no major catastrophes, no goats loose, no bees loose, no tents blown over, so that's great. I would say we had pretty good attendance. It wasn't a giant crowd, but it was steady. And the feedback that I received from the booths that I talked to was that they found that the particular crowd was very engaged and very interested. So those that were there to learn and to network. So for example, we did have folks that came to the lectures and then stayed the whole time, that attended every single lecture. And we had folks that came for 2 or 3. I think the biggest crowd was for deer resistant planting with Doug Zick. Um, Not a surprise given the topic and given Wildwood, but one of the first things that the Missouri Botanical Garden presenter said to us, Ms. McKelvey, was, "Wow, people actually came," because she had some, full seats, and that was the first presentation. As we got towards the end of the day, the crowd dwindled by the end, and I am not really sure without doing consecutive presentations how we would really shorten that without favoring businesses in the future if we did do it again. I would say that the Watershed Erosion Task Force stream table was a hit. It had lots of children learning about how fluvial dynamics works, and so we really did, with our event, help another arm of the city and their educational needs. So that was good. And we also had, I think, local businesses that felt like that if that maybe folks didn't know about them before the event, but knew about them afterwards. There were some minor hiccups and a little bit of drama with a couple of groups, but it wasn't our fault as a city, and we did have a last minute cancellation. So the spacing where we had gaps of tents looked odd, but that's because of last minute cancellations, and it was what it was. So there were good food sales, and the people that came did seem to enjoy it. So Councilmember Ottenberg and Councilmember Dodwell were there as well, and I don't know if they have any differing opinions, but you'd be welcome to hear them.
I was pleasantly surprised at the turnout. It was a very strong turnout, and to your point, Chair, everyone seemed to be very interested in all of the displays that the various vendors and organizations had.
I will say that one of the things that we were dealing with was that it was a spring break weekend, and that's just how the dates fell this time, so that made attendance difficult. We were in a pandemic, and the weather was not great in the morning, and so there were 3 pretty big strikes against us. One of the business owners said to me, of course, May would be much better for crowds, but that would be really hard for us as business owners. And so I wish the circumstances surrounding the date were different, but it's the only date that we had.
I didn't hear anything negative from anybody who was there. They were all very positive feedback on having the presentations. Even questions were asked about, can we repeat these presentations somewhere? We've, among us, kind of talked about possibly doing some at the farmers market, where we invite back some of these individuals to go over their presentations so people have a better understanding of erosion or beekeeping and all the other topics that we went through. There were a few individuals that didn't like where they were placed, so we may move them if and when we do this again. And we'll just have to be cognizant in future years that we do not do it on a spring break. But the people that came because they wanted to learn something. And I didn't find a person that walked away going, man, I don't know why I even came here today. They were all very engaged. So I think it was a positive process for the city of Wildwood. I think a lot of our citizens learned more than they knew about what was going on in Wildwood with the water erosion task force, with the types of recycling activities that we are involved in, things like that. So I think it was a good promo for just the government body of Wildwood as well, and the types of things we're engaged in to ensure the environment and the where they live stays the way it is. That's what I heard from most everybody is, I learned something so that I can make sure that it stays the way it is now and doesn't get worse. Or I learned something so that I can make it go back to a greener space. Things like that. Those were the comments that I was hearing. So,
I'm glad to hear that you heard those comments. And the nice thing is a lot of the businesses gave out coupons as well, which we asked them to consider doing to kind of drive the attendees to turn into potential customers. And
mhm.
so hopefully in the next couple of months, or really it would make sense to ask midsummer when a lot of the plants are more available, is to see what their kind of return was like on that. But
Mhm.
Mr. Cross,
Yes, Chair.
do you have anything you'd like to add before we move on?
No, not really. I have asked for feedback from the folks that worked the event. I want to hear from the people there that were there for quite a number of hours, their pros and cons. So I've asked the folks who were there. So I'm waiting to get that report to look at it from the operational standpoint.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Well, if there's no other comments, we're ready to move on to the North Point development update.
Thank you, Chair. With regard to North Point development, this is just more of an update. Really, it's a general update, which is probably more appropriate for the entire council. However, the meetings that are going on right now there's two different approaches, or there's two different prongs to working with the North Point development team. Number one has to do with the zoning of the area, the industrial area, and what North Point wants to do versus what needs to be done from an industrial zoning standpoint, and how that's handled. Director Vunich is handling that side of it. That's pretty straightforward, quite honestly. Once we get them to them being North Point to try to follow the process, they're attempting to shortcut the process, which would be to the detriment of the city. So we will not allow that to happen. So we're working that side. The more problematic side of the negotiations, if you will, those are the ones that the mayor and John Young and I are working on. In fact, the three of us had a meeting this afternoon about North Point. John Young and I had a meeting last Friday with bond counsel to get input on certain aspects of this development. The biggest sticking point right now has to do with the development entity has a formula that they have used when they have developed these types of distribution centers across the country, and several here in the St. Louis area, has to do with tax abatement. That's problematic for the city because we don't have a property tax, and therefore we cannot invoke what is called Chapter 100. That is a chapter out of the IRS code that would allow the city to be able to have tax incentives, but we can't do that. And so when you look at the impact on the school district or the fire protection district or the library district, it gets rather problematic. And at the end of the day, the question that we ask, and when I say we, I'm talking the mayor and John Young and myself, ultimately is, what is the value to the city? What is the value to the residents? And right now, a lot of the information, the rhetoric that we are getting from the development entity is just that. It's just words, but it's not quantifiable to the point where they have shared information that we can actually quantify. They're not home runs. So it's something that the mayor would probably not be comfortable taking to the residents at this point in time. So we'll continue going down the road with them and see if, this is not a slam dunk by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a flat no, but we'll just kind of play it out. As I say, the mayor asked John Young and I to go back and do a little bit more homework to quantify some things that we can quantify in terms of what the revenue stream might look like in the absence of a Chapter 100, which then gets into pilot payments, and pilot stands for payment in lieu of taxes, which again, we're a unique situation here. We're not a Wentzville. We are not a St. Charles. We are not those entities that have those kinds of taxes. And if we did, this is a no-brainer, because the payments in lieu of taxes would far and away exceed, the tax revenues that, property tax revenues that the city would receive. But we don't have that. So, and we can't, we don't want to impose a special tax in the industrial area that might affect other entities down there, because you can't just do it for one entity. You have to do it for all. So all the other businesses that are down in that area, that would be unfair. So all of that to say is we're still working through the process, but it is problematic.
Thank you. I think it says a lot about business psychology, right? They're so used to dealing with a different tax structure. They almost need it. It's kind of like going to Kohl's, right? They always mark it up to take it down. Like there's very rarely anything that you're not paying a sale price on. And so they're not seeing a sale price discount sticker. Therefore, in their mind, it's just not a good deal, even if our regular rates are the same as somebody else's discounted rates. I think it's a psychology of not having us concede on something. But that's just my thought. But thank you for the update. Any questions?
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we're moving on then. So update on Missouri Main Street Route 66 initiative. The only thing that I have is, since our last meeting, I was asked to author a supporting letter on behalf of the committee and sign it, and I did so, to be submitted with the application. And the chair of Historic Preservation submitted one as well. Steve, do you have anything else to add?
Yes, thanks, Chair. Robin in particular, and Melanie in somewhat of a support role, are going great guns. Robin in particular, and kudos to Robin. She is the most enthusiastic young lady. Particularly, this is right in her wheelhouse. This is what she has done in her prior career, and she's running with it. And so, in addition to the letter, Chair Edens, that you signed, she's also sent one to the school district. We had a meeting with the school district, the Rockwood School District officials, made a presentation to them. They were very supportive and very enthusiastic, particularly when Robin and as and her vision of this engages students from the Rockwood School District. That got the school district excited. Robin came and gave me an update today with regards to some other, having the school administrators name a couple upper-class folks that would be able to then approach their peers and engage in the Route 66 park and helping with some of the stuff. And again, so it's volunteerism. It is community engagement. There is I think it's, I don't know, somewhere around the 8th of April or something like that. There's a large event, if you will, that Robin is planning, which will engage hopefully businesses, the school district. We're trying to find a venue. We thought it would be at Rockwood Middle School or Wildwood Middle School. That today we found out won't pan out. So we're talking to some churches there nearby the Big Chief Grill, because ultimately that's where we would end up. If this works out, I'll ask the mayor to say a few remarks, but the folks from Main Street Connection would be part of it. So Robin is really picked up the ball and ran with this. So I think this is going to be a great initiative.
Glad to hear it. Right, if there's no further questions, we'll move on to the update on business changes in Wildwood.
Thank you, Chair. The one update that I have has to do with Micro Meadows, and that's the one that we're currently working with. And I've spent a lot of time with the owners with that, as well as Mark Harder. Micro Meadows had hoped to have an opening on the 19th, which was last Saturday. I had a little bit of heartburn over that, because they were going to have to split between because they were part of the Lawn and Garden Summit, and then they wanted to do a grand opening. I respectfully said you might want to reconsider or think about how we might want to do that. However, the decision was made for them because what they hadn't counted on was getting the inspection by the St. Louis County Health Department, and who came and visited them a week ago yesterday. And there was a punch list of things that they needed to do. So that's a several week process, even with me working through Councilmember Harder, and trying to speed up the process. He said it just never happens where they come out and do an inspection and everything's fine. So at the end of the day, they have that to do. They have some signage to still put up. What they may do is they might do a soft opening sometime mid-April, early April, perhaps. It's probably going to be more like mid-April. Do a soft opening, get a soft opening, get an idea of how that feels, what it looks like, and then we would do a grand opening where we would have ribbon cutting. We would have dignitary, the mayor and council members and others, and so forth. But that date is to be determined. So I'm continuing to work with the owners, and hopefully in the not too distant future, we'll have a new business operating here in town center. So that's really the most progress. I'm working with the owners or the potential owners of a new business, and that is the whiskey and cigar bar. They're still working through what that model looks like. And we'll see where that goes. They're very enthusiastic, but they've got a lot of work to do for that type of an establishment in terms of liquor licenses, in terms of working with the state and the county and Wildwood. So that's going to be a little more drawn out process, if you will. But those are the two businesses that are going on right now. I'm going to reach out to the lady who contacted me before Christmas with regards to potentially moving or opening up a second business in the old Imogene's. She has a business in Clayton and she wants to open up a similar business, but she said that things were crazy and we would talk in the new year. So I've not heard back from her. I will reach out to her and see what's going on with that business. Things have quieted down. I don't have the gentleman who was still trying to figure out what he might open up in the old Jack in the Box. His last suggestion, as I shared with you all the last meeting, would not fly whatsoever, as you remember. So we'll see where that goes. So we're moving along. But like I say, the hot one right now, the next business that we will welcome to Wildwood will be Micro Meadows here in the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. For ready for action and for information, under not ready for action, we have 3 items. Although if we are going to start work, Councilmember Clark.
I'm sorry, Chair, but I had a question about about the business changes.
Apologies, go right ahead.
No problem. Do we have a map of Wildwood that shows the current businesses that we have on the map, so we can just see it at a glance? And the second question is, do we know how many home businesses that we have in Wildwood?
Councilmember Clark, the answer to your questions, excuse me, in both cases is yes. And I can share that with the committee.
Thank you. I'd appreciate it.
No problem.
Any other questions? Councilmember Dodwell.
These aren't pertaining to what Steve just talked about. These are different questions. So whenever you're ready, just
Okay.
let me know.
All right, we'll circle back under number 5. Okay, so then we just have 3 items under not ready for action, but maybe at the same time that we are working on it, any sort of emails out to businesses, we could just try to make sure that we're up to date. So I can chat with City Administrator Cross about that later. And now's the appropriate time, Councilmember Dodwell. Other business news and updates. If you'd like to ask your question.
One question I have for Mr. Cross is, do you need any additional assistance with completing the economic development guide update, or are we just going to wait until sometime in 2022 to update that? Or
Thank you for the question, Councilmember Dodwell. Thank you for the offer. I appreciate that. Actually, I had a conversation recently with a gentleman that I'm speaking with on a number of different fronts with regards to the position itself. But more importantly, right now, he is going to be assisting me in pulling together that economic development guide, as well as some other things that I've not been able to get to. So so I actually have a gentleman that kind of if you want to call it a consultant, or however you want to phrase it, but he's going to be assisting me. So he has the materials, he's reviewing them, and he and I will get back together next week and then start that process. But thank you for the offer, though. I appreciate it.
and when will that guide come back to this committee for final review before it's blessed by the entire council? Because I feel it's imperative that this committee review that document.
Oh, no question about it. Absolutely, it will come back to this committee. I'll need to talk with him. We just had our conversation yesterday, so I want to go through it, and then we can lay out a plan in terms and a time frame in which we can get that developed. But certainly, there's no question that when that's done, it would come back to this committee for review and for blessing.
Okay, doke. Question number 2. We know we have the census. We know we have to make some changes to some things as far as how we align wards, et cetera. And this is going to have to come before council, but I didn't know if we had any more specifics on the timing for that kind of work.
The census itself, where we are right now, is that the mayor will need to appoint the 8 members of the census committee. And as you have seen in some of my weekly reports, each one of those individuals separately will require a 2/3 majority approval for each one of those 8 members. But that ball is in with Mayor Bolin. And so he is, I'm sure, working on identifying those individuals. And then once that's done, once he has completed that, then we will come to council with that.
Okay. And then one last question I have. I'm sorry, guys. I just wanted to make sure we had this. I was looking at the economic development manager position. We had published in our Gazette that we were going to be replacing that position with someone. And I wanted to find out when this committee will start on that process, when we will be finalizing how we're going to be doing that, et cetera.
Is that a question for me?
It's a question for the entire group, I guess. We've got a job description that's sitting out on the city website for an economic development manager. We've been tossing it down the road for many months now. And in talking with constituents and talking with other council members, I think we need to start moving forward now to get someone in place so that we have them on board when we start doing someone on board no later than August that can start reaching out to the businesses. That is one thing that I heard from several of the businesses that were present at the event this past Saturday was, when are you guys going to get an economic development manager so that I can have somebody to easily discuss issues for my particular business? I don't want to take up Steve Cross's time because he's got 20 other things to do. And while I applaud all the work you've been doing, Steve, it's a full-time job. So that's just my 2 cents. So I wanted to find out if we could get something on the agenda before this group gets reappointed next month.
Well, in terms of, I'm not sure I fully understand when you say get something on the agenda, that is that's a function of the city administrator to hire that administrative person. And I am.
That wasn't in the past. It wasn't in the past. So why is it now?
Because that is what the mayor and the city attorney has indicated to a number of people. But if that's a question, again, I think I gave this answer last time. It is inappropriate per the city administrator, I'm sorry, per the city attorney. This is not a committee function. It's a city administrator function to hire that person, and I am working on that. I would ask Councilmember Dodwell, though, if you do hear from a business owner that if they have a particular concern or something that they need an answer for, please
I've
send
directed
them my
to you.
way. More than happy to help them.
I understand that, Steve. I guess my other question is then why, when we hired the last person for the economic development manager position, was that a process that included city council members, the city administrator, and the manager of parks or planning and development and parks, Joe Vunich, so to speak. Why was it okay to do it then and it's not okay to do it now?
I'm not sure that I can explain because I was not part of that process back in 2016. I do know that, and John Young wasn't involved in that process. But as John Young has said on a number of occasions, hiring and firing of individuals within who report to the city administrator is the sole and total responsibility of the city administrator. The mayor nor any of the council members get involved in that, and that is to protect the mayor and the council members, as John Young has said to a number of council members. So what was done in 2016, I can't say, but I know that John Young was quite shocked when he found out that a hiring was done by a committee for a position that reports to the city administrator. So that's the sole responsibility of the city administrator to fill staff positions. And what I can say is I'm working on that to determine how I want to fill that position with what kind of person. So I'm working on that now.
Is it the sole responsibility for you to put the job description together as well? Or is that something that has to be approved by council?
That does not need approval by council, no.
Okay. I'm going to speak from my perspective, and you've probably heard this before, but I think we are losing momentum as a city for tax revenue from sales taxes, and for making a positive business environment for our current business individuals and our potential business individuals to work in. Try as you might, Steve. I know you're doing a very superb job in reaching out to constituents whenever help is needed. You're reaching out to businesses, etc. I just want to make sure that we have a replacement for Julian, not a half web developer / assistant to this position, because I really, really think that we need somebody devoted to the city of Wildwood on this issue. And I think that's a topic that the council needs to take up, even though they may be reporting to you. We've spoken about it in the past as a council. We made a decision in the past as a council to have somebody specifically devoted to providing economic development within the city. And unfortunately, the past councils after that position was hired. There were individuals on council that did not agree with that. I just think we're missing an opportunity. And I'll make the same statement at the next council meeting.
Well, Councilmember Dodwell, I agree with you 100%. 100%, 110%, if that's possible, that having an individual devoted to maintaining the relationships with the businesses is key to that position. And that is something I am absolutely committed to, retaining that positive aspect of that position. And that will be a very, very large part of that position. The person who sits in that chair and that's their primary responsibility, is to be the point person for the businesses in Wildwood to reach out to have a conduit to the Director of Planning and Zoning, Director of Public Works, City Administrator, et cetera. So that's job number one, is that person to do that. However, there are functions that were being done by the previous occupant of that position that did not have benefit to the city. And so it is not my intent to hire a clone of the previous person, because there were a lot of things that were happening that had no benefit and cost the city quite a bit of money. So I'm going to pick the good things and the important things based on my conversations with the mayor pro tem, with the city administrator, with prior council members who were involved in the initial setting up hiring of that individual, in terms of, and basically sharing my vision, which I shared with this committee at the very beginning when the prior person left. And I've shared that exact same vision, and I've gotten a thumbs up by virtually everyone, and so forth. So I'm going to continue to pursue that vision, which is to get the best person to do the job of economic development for the city as it exists in 2022, not as it existed in 2016. So I agree with you 100% in terms of what we want in that position. But I think that position can also be the point person from a communication standpoint, reaching out to businesses on a number of fronts. And
well, part of my question, Steve, was in looking at the job description from the past individual that was in this role, the level of detail on expectations for that person was much higher than the 4 or 5 bullet points that you provided to this committee back in November. So I'm just hoping that we get a little bit more detail about what that individual is going to be doing, what they're going to be responsible for, what their benefit to engaging our businesses is going to be, and the methods that they're going to be doing that in. Somehow there needs to be more than a 5 or 6 sentence job task listing. There needs to be a real job description. If you're not going to continue with the existing job description, then I think that's something that needs to be shared with the council as a whole, so that we can continue to support and provide perspective on what our citizens want for economic development within the city.
The job description that is out there is an old job description. In fact, I appreciate the reminder about that, because that was a job description that was written by someone in the past and probably is a little bit out of date. So I will need to review that and modify it and edit it to what we believe is appropriate for that position. So that probably should come down, and I appreciate the reminder about that.
Well, it's
I will say the council member.
Lauren,
Oh,
you're
you guys
stuck
are frozen
again.
again. Can you hear me?
Now we
Can you hear
can.
me? I can't. Okay. Again, don't know if I interrupted anybody or at all. Councilmember Clark dropped off the screen. and I think is trying to get back on, if somebody can let her back on. But I think that where any friction is that I know as chair of the committee, I cannot accurately state what your vision is for the department as a city administrator, or exactly where you see this position going, because I know we've had conversations about it, but it might have changed some, and it didn't have the same detail and job duties that were finalized as before. So I think this is a failure to communicate, among other things. And so as a committee, you know, I'm finding out that you're doing interviews at the meeting myself. And so if we're having a hard time getting behind it, it's because we don't exactly know what we're getting behind. And when we saw the job description that Julian provided as a committee, and so this was the updated version that was an attachment to the agenda. So I doubt it's the same as the one that's the older one that's posted. Is reviewing that, what we really saw was that these were things that we still wanted to be doing and still valued. So the question then becomes, what do you have a problem with that particular job description, or was it that the duties being done were not the same ones on the job description? So I still don't even have an answer to that as a chair. So we are running late on time. I've got Councilmember Ottenberg, and then we'll try to finish up for the night if there's not additional comments. But I think we do need to maybe have some more discussions, because I know as a chair, I just don't have enough information to know where we're even headed as a department. So if I don't understand that, that means that the rest of council doesn't either. Councilmember Ottenberg?
No, I was just going to respectfully suggest something, Chair, that you alluded to, which is we're getting late on time here, and I would respectfully suggest that we table this discussion in the interest of time and in the interest in getting to any other agenda items that you may have.
So we don't need a formal,
tonight.
yeah, we don't need a formal motion to table.
Okay.
We can just adjourn the meeting, yeah, unless you want a table, which is a specific term, and you would need a date for that to come back with. So if there's no other comments, then the next meeting is Tuesday, April 26th at 6 p.m. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
Made by Councilmember Ottenberg. Do we have a second? Seconded by Councilmember Clark. And I will say again, thank you for your patience with my internet connection. Sorry if I caught anybody off or said, can you hear me 20 times like a Verizon commercial?
Happens to all of us.
Yes, I appreciate your patience. Okay. Seeing
Thanks, you all.
non-debatable, all those in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, thank you very much. And you all have a lovely night, okay?
Thank
You do as
everybody.
well. Good night, everyone.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks.